Hey y'all, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan, and here we do all things spooky. And today I am going to be doing nothing but reading scary stories that you guys have sent in to me. So please check out the description below to find out where and how to send in your stories to me so that I may read them. And there you will also find podcast episode links and other social media links. So, with all that being said, let's read some stories. I have several stories, but I'll start with this one for now. If you'd like to hear any of the other stories, please let me know and I'd love to talk to you about them. There's not a day that goes by where I don't think about these encounters, and I believe it'll always be a vivid memory. Back in the 2000s, I was 16 visiting my dad in the Black Hills National Forest, South Dakota during the summer. We had a cabin in those woods right down the road from the lake. Both my dad and I are really active people, especially when I was younger. We'd constantly hit up trails all around the forest. We'd hiked almost every mountain and kayaked in every lake, especially Poctola, considering there was also a campground that we could stay at. Well, in late August, right before I'd be heading back to stay with my mother, my dad, our family friends Jake, Mary, their daughter Lily, all fake names, and myself all decided to go camping for several days. We get there early in the morning and set up together. My dad and I were staying in a tent, and Jake's family was staying in their camper van. The whole day was honestly great. We swam, hiked, fished, all that jazz. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. After we ate supper, it was relatively dark, and we decided that we were bored and wanted to play a game, flashlight hide and seek. We all played several rounds, then that went fine. Maybe during the third or fourth round, while I was hiding behind a tree, I was just observing my surroundings while I waited to be found. Even though it was completely dark out, around midnight, the moon and stars were shining relatively bright, lighting up the trees and grounds where you could almost see us fine without a flashlight. As I've said, we've camped and hiked many times here, so when I was looking around, I immediately noticed how there were two lights hovering right above the top of the mountain in the distance. I assumed it was a radio tower, but thought it was strange. I'd never noticed it before. Being 16 and spread out alone in the woods while it was dark, I got a bit scared thinking about what it could be and made myself stop thinking about it. Honestly, I did forget about it, but during the last round, my dad hid over behind the tree spot where I'd hid at. He yelled out, "What the hell is that? Jake, come over here." Everyone came out from their spots and walked over, and I immediately knew what he was talking about. The two lights. A feeling of dread washed over me. By the time I got over to my dad, the lights had traveled halfway down the mountain it was originally hovering above. All of us were watching them slowly make their way down from the top, and they were swaying in sync together. Everyone but me wanted to go check it out. There was a trail leading right to that mountain that we could take. It was maybe a 5-minute walk to get to the base, and I was absolutely against it because all I could think was, this is how people die in horror movies. They walk towards the strange hovering crafts and get abducted like we're in Fire in the Sky. No thank you. But I either went with them or stayed behind alone, so I tagged along. We arrived basically at the base of the mountain, and we were several feet away from the start of the trail going up to it. One of the lights wasn't visible anymore, but the other was almost at the base. It was completely silent. The loudest noise was coming from us. We have a perfect viewpoint of the light at this point, and I was absolutely terrified. I had a terrible gut feeling that we needed to run, leave, get as far away from whatever those things were. I was begging everyone to come back, but they were all wanting to check it out and go further to see what happened. I eventually convinced Lily to run back to the camp with me. I tried one last time to get everyone to head back, but to no avail. We quickly get back to the camp and hunker down in Lily's van and wait for our parents to get back. We pass the time drawing and talking. Around 20-ish minutes later, they return. They said nothing too crazy or bizarre happened. The visible light just slowly disappeared. The other was never seen again, though. They said they walked around the base of the mountain and walked up a ways of the trail, headed up to the mountain to see if anyone was there, maybe flying some sort of drone or a kite that had lights, but nothing. It was around 1:30 in the morning. We all mutually agreed that it had been a long day and we needed to head to bed. My dad and I settled in our tent, and my dad was planning on staying up for a bit longer to read, but I was trying to go right to bed. Right as I was about to pass out, we hear this loud crashing through the woods, something huge and heavy snapping tree branches and anything on the ground. The most terrifying sound I've ever heard was let out. It was a long scream. It sounded how a wild monkey screams, along with this deep growl and grunt, like it got quieter long yelps that turned into echoey laughter, sounding like a hyena. Then it would repeat. It was maybe a football field away from us, and my dad and I stayed quiet. The screaming and running stopped, but we could hear something ripping branches and shoving trees, making an extremely loud spectacle. I look over to my dad, and he whispers to be quiet. My dad was probably the bravest, craziest man I knew. He wasn't scared of anything, so this was really the first time I'd ever seen him with a worried expression on his face. Suddenly we hear running and screaming again, except it's getting louder and closer. It starts to rain and thunder. I've never experienced such a bad storm. We were debating running to our truck because of the rain, but I didn't want to risk if something was really out there. The thunder was so loud and close that it was shaking the ground we were laying on. The thunder and rain seemed to drown out all the screaming and crashing until we couldn't hear it at all. 2 hours go by, and we're still just sitting and listening for anything. Right when we thought it was over, we hear a deep growl hovering right next to our tent, quite literally right outside of that tent. My dad pulls out protection and has it pointed in that direction. We're silent, relying on listening to know what's happening since we have no windows. We probably sat like that for half an hour. It was the worst feeling I've ever experienced. It's difficult to describe, but the closest thing would be impending doom. Like any second, whatever it was would come crashing through that tent and take our lives. Eventually, I did fall asleep, but my dad never did. He stayed up till daylight and never heard anything else. We crawled out of that tent restlessly in the morning and walked over to the campfire where Jake and his family were sat eating breakfast. We told them everything we heard during the night and asked if they noticed anything. They didn't. My dad and I talked about it together, wondering what it could have been. Something that should be noted is that we only heard one step at a time, so something was running on 2 feet. We checked the surrounding area and we saw many broken branches and scuffed up trees, but they weren't there before. We really didn't look or notice anything beforehand. There's no bears in South Dakota. The biggest animal I could compare the possible weight to would be an elk or a moose, which we don't have moose, and I seriously doubt there'd be an elk traveling solo through a campground. It would also have to be on its hind legs, screaming and laughing while throwing itself into trees. We've gone back to that campsite and mountain many times afterwards, and we've never had anything else happen like that. Being indigenous, with all the native history surrounding the Black Hills, we were obviously worried about it being a not human or a walker. But would that mean we encountered something like that and something extraterrestrial, or was it the same phenomenon? Could it have been Bigfoot? What's your opinion? P.S. I love your cats and your channel. My favorite thing to do is unwind and throw on your videos. And again, let me know if you'd like to hear any of my other stories. Dude, if your stories are anything like that one, you tell me every one you have right now. Turn off this video and do that right now, please. Please. So, here's the thing. I mean, it's possible that you experience two things, and that's, okay. Here's the thing. I need my Zevia for this. I have some stuff to say. It is possible that two different things happened at once, 100%. But the thing with walkers, from what I have gathered, is they can present themselves in like the light way that you experienced. That could have just been your first introduction. They can look however they want, which is really unfortunate because it's scary and I don't like it. But that is probably what you saw, and the fact that your dad acknowledged it so hard explains why your tent was targeted and not the camper van that the other family was in, and the fact that they slept through it, that does make sense. So, I mean, that makes sense to me. I'm glad that you guys have went back and not experienced it. That means it's not, like, continuously targeting you. But I think you absolutely encountered a walker. 100%. Everything you described makes sense for it to be a walker. So that's horrific. Don't love that. And you're in the area for it, too, so. I've been a long-time watcher, and for a while I was too nervous to really speak about these occurrences for some time. But my friends and I have recently talked about our encounters with the paranormal and supernatural, so I figured I'd share them with the rest of the world. Both of these occurrences happened to me in my hometown in southeastern Arizona, where I live was about 30 minutes or so from Mexico. My hometown is a fairly rural area. It's pitch black at night besides the moon giving some light. We're located on a mountainous range and frequently get coyotes, bobcats, mountain lions, and even the occasional jaguar. There isn't much for trees or other mosquitoes and pines and cedars, etc. I promise this is important. The first story happened when I was around 14 or so. It was a very clear night and the moon was full, if not only a day before being full. I was just laying in my bed watching YouTube, and I remember laughing and just generally enjoying this video. I was not watching anything scary or creepy before at all. I do need to explain a few things, though. My bed was directly under my window, and the middle window never fully shut. There were fairly small windows, and I only had small frilly kitchen curtains that were honestly less than a foot length, which meant they barely covered the windows. As I'm watching my little video, it was around 1 in the morning, and I had this overwhelming feeling to look outside, and I did. I remember smiling as I looked outside because I was in the middle of laughing, and what I saw wiped that smile right off of my face. The porch light was off as my grandpa had just gone to bed. The only thing illuminating my street was the bright light of the moon. I saw this very tall figure, I'd say around 8 feet tall, walking up the road. The way it was walking was almost on these stilt-like tendrils, withering and jutting out from the base. It almost looked like a really messed up giraffe that was made of pure shadows. I couldn't look away from it, but as it was getting closer to the driveway entrance, I ducked back down and began to have my first and only panic attack. I thought I was having a heart attack and hesitantly went to wake up my grandpa to take me to the hospital. He told me it was anxiety and told me to go back to bed. After a few hours, I calmed down enough to go to sleep. That was the first and only time I've seen this creature, thank the gods. This next story is going to be fairly long, but this is by far the worst paranormal experience that I've ever had, and I've had many. My friend and I were roommates for a few years, and we've always had some very minor activity, all very benign, and eventually, other than the feeling of being watched, it was pretty chill. Most of this stuff didn't really happen to me, but Valerie. Every now and again, we would see orbs or feel some sort of presence, as well as my friend's cats acting weird. I got this cheap little plastic Lucky Cat that was battery operated to help bring in some luck into our apartment. But man, that thing brought everything but luck. Lucky Cat had broken only a few days after getting it. It was only $10, so you get what you pay for. Even though Lucky Cat no longer worked, he was still cute, so I kept him as decor anyways. One thing that was always strange about this Lucky Cat is that he would move by himself. The cat never messed with him, and even if they did, there was no way that they would without us hearing or seeing it. When I say he moved, I meant he would rotate, looking completely in a different direction than when I had faced him before. I or my friend would look away for a few seconds to watch TV, look down to Lucky Cat, and he would have moved, even moving in front of Valerie. This wasn't the scariest thing ever. In fact, it was more annoying than anything else. Side note, there is no way that this could be caused by the wind or AC. Lucky Cat's battery stopped working literally 2 days after getting him, so it wasn't that either. Our AC didn't work, which was miserable in Arizona. We had various items on there that weighed less than Lucky Cat, and they never moved as much as he did. In August of 22, my friend's sister had a family emergency, and she needed to stay with us for a few weeks. That night, shit went down. Valerie called me and asked me to pick her up her little sister from her dad's. I immediately jumped up and started to get my shoes on and got my keys. The problem? My key fob was gone and off my lanyard. It was a stormy night, and while there was an urgent emergency, I was turning over furniture and walking outside with the flashlight on my phone to look and see if I had dropped it, knowing damn well I didn't. I never found it again after moving and getting everything out of there, and I had to get it replaced, and the key fob was not found inside, nor was it found in the complex. She had to have a different friend pick her sister up. It was only a couple days with her sister staying with us for the activity to begin to ramp up. Her little sister was staying on our couch, and she would FaceTime her boyfriend at the same time every night when she fell asleep. She would lay her phone on the arm of the couch and lay her head on the cushion. Her and her boyfriend told us this story. She'd fallen asleep, and her boyfriend started to call for her, saying "babe" over and over, but she never responded because she was asleep. It turns out that her boyfriend had saw a dark figure looming over the camera, and he thought it was her until it didn't respond and eventually left. I'd like to say that our apartment was almost never completely dark because we had LED lights on in the kitchen 24/7, which was connected to the living room. Her sister had also told us about how she would often see a black figure of a man standing at the edge of the hallway where my room, bathroom, and my friend's room and bathroom were. The hallway was very dark, and there was a very defined line of where the light from the LEDs ended and the darkness began. This was not the worst of it. Besides a failed half-hearted attempt of filming the ghost through TikTok, the app crashed and my phone just randomly restarted when I filmed in my friend's room, so the footage is gone. After her sister had moved back to Maryland to live with her mom, it was just us again and things were usual. Feeling watched, but it didn't really feel the same anymore. It felt a lot more creepy than before. One night at around 2 in the morning, my friend woke me up and hopped into bed with me randomly. The reason? She was laying in her bed having a hard time sleeping, and she was in the half-awake, half-asleep state when she started to hear someone pacing back and forth. She was frozen, stuck in paralysis. This thing paced around for a bit before leaning in her ear and letting out a hefty breath, thus prompting her to jump up and run to my room, and we both got shit sleep that night. After that day, I had enough and aggressively cleansed and got whatever that was out of our apartment. We firmly believed that whatever was showing up to her sister and whatever scared her that night was not the friendly ghost we had before. There was something more malicious in this than genuinely scared us. But there was still activity in that apartment, but it was never to the extent of that. Thank you for taking the time to read my stories. These two genuinely scared me for life. I'm just glad that this thing didn't notice me and whatever was in that apartment never showed itself to me. I probably would have died. If anyone knows what this creature could be, I would love to know. I don't believe it was a walker, though we do have them here technically. In my research, they don't become giant amorphous blobs of shadow with tendrils. It's been 10 plus years since I saw that creature, and I still have no idea what it is or could be. I'm just wondering if they were connected at all. I mean, I guess it could be, and that would make sense. It sounds like you have an attachment for sure, but I mean, it's good that you got rid of it. Attachments come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes they look weird. Sometimes they just look like shadows. It can change shape. So, I mean, that would make sense. All right, next story. My mother is addicted to a substance. That's a strong start to this story. Hold on, I am locked in. My mother's addicted to a certain substance, and she kidnapped me and my sister back in October of 23. She kept us in a basement. She attempted to hit me over the head with a hammer while I was sleeping, but I woke up before she could, and she looked me in my eyes and said, "You're the devil, and I need you to make him leave." She beat me while saying gibberish that wasn't coherent. My grandmother got me back in 24, and they're fighting for custody, and every night I've had sleep paralysis. Things yanking my hair, waking me up with bruises and scratches on my body. It comes out of my closet, then comes over to me during my sleep paralysis and starts strangling me. It's cut me, and there is one under my bed. I named Dave. Dave is a 6 foot tall humanoid figure with pale rotting skin, deep sunken in eyes, and his jaws unhinged. It smells pungent, such a rotten meat and something sour, if you get what I mean. But he's always there, even out of sleep paralysis. He doesn't scare me, but he makes me uncomfortable when I stand up. He tries to yank me underneath my bed. Sometimes he attempts to mock my dead father's voice. There's one more thing that isn't as common, but it showed up the first time when I had whistled at night in the woods of Wyoming. It stands outside my window at night and it bangs and it stinks. I can't explain it, but I do as you say, I ignore it. I want it to stop. I want the demons to leave me alone, and I want the burns and the cuts to stop. Please give me any tips. If you want any more stories that I have, please let me know. I'm so sorry you're going through all of that with your mom, first of all. I cannot imagine how you're feeling. Um, it could be related, it could not be. I would consider going to some form of therapy because you went through a lot. Don't just suffer in silence. I would seriously do some therapy. But as far as the occurrences go, your mom and that trauma probably brought some stuff into you. So I would do cleansings and maybe some banishments, put some protection on you, and just take care of your mental health, dude. That's the main takeaway from this. Just take care of yourself. Consider some form of therapy. I am so sorry, man. All right, next story. My half sister's mom passed away when my sister was 4. Then at 5, my two half sisters, and my dad moved in with my mom. Now the story. My sister and I were in my living room playing and messing around when we both heard the stove turn on. We both went into the kitchen to investigate because we didn't see anyone go in the kitchen. So we go in there and the stove isn't on and no one was in there. Us being 9 and 14 at the time ran into our parents' room. We tell them what happened and they say we're just hearing things, even though my sister believes it was her mom. Thank you for reading and I love your vids. It might have been her mom saying hi. Okay, that one's a little bit wholesome. Oh, okay. Well, anyways, that is where we are going to wrap up for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you tomorrow.